So now we move along to Smart Mark University, my favorite college of all time. And in this episode of Smart Mark University, we are not covering current events. We are not doing anything. We are talking about one man who stands alone in the wrestling universe. Actually does not stand alone. He has an entire faction around him. But that man is Chris Jericho. Y2J, baby. Chris Jericho. And the title I have for this segment in this episode is Chris Jericho, America's last true rock star. And I say that because, and by the way, I was inspired to do this piece because I did see Chris Jericho come out looking very ripped on AEW, and he looks like he's in phenomenal shape. So shouts out to Chris Jericho. I'm sure he is doing all the right things, and it's really cool to see somebody who's at 50 years old coming out in that kind of shape. It's pretty dope. So, but I say America's last true rock star because this man literally does it all. I mean, really, he does so much stuff. He's obviously a professional wrestler. He obviously has his band with Fozzy, so he's going on tour and doing shows and stuff like that. And then this is kind of a the man. This is kind of an underrated point. The man drinks Grey Goose on the rocks. Yeah, Grey Goose on the rocks. What kind of a savage drinks Grey Goose vodka on the rocks? First of all, vodka is like rubbing alcohol. I hate vodka, but Chris Jericho drinks vodka on the rocks. What a savage. He is, that just goes to show you, he is, like I said, America's last true rock star. He lives that life. He lives that life, and he is very good at what he does. It's been so fun to see Chris Jericho kind of evolve as a performer in the last few years, because he had those few years with WWE a few years ago where he was doing all the stuff with Kevin Owens, which was so much fun. And just if you look at his career over the last 20 years, right? So you start in 2000, or let's start in 99, so 23 years ago. So in 99, he comes in. He had an entire career in WCW and ECW in Japan and Mexico and all that stuff. And then he comes into the WWF, verbal sparring with The Rock on his very first night. Then he kind of has a lackluster year. Then he goes through kind of 2000, where he's working a lot of matches with Benoit and Guerrero and Kurt Angle, and he's just kind of he's kicking off a lot of these pay-per-view cards and doing a hell of a job. Those are still some of the most fun matches to go watch back. Like I know Chris Benoit is a little bit of a hot topic for people, but if you go back and watch some of those matches, they are good. And then so then you move from 2000 to 2001, and at the end of 2001, he's winning the Undisputed title, beating The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin the same night, which he did not shy away from reminding us on a very regular basis. Chris Jericho, that guy. So he made his run to the top of the card, became the very first undisputed champion in WWF history, the whole deal. And, then he, then loses it to Hunter at WrestleMania, obviously, in Toronto. And then you go into kind of 2002. He goes kind of back to what he was doing in the mid card, and then you go to 2003. He has that barn burner program with Shawn Michaels where they steal the show at WrestleMania 19, which that was crazy. I think a lot of people could argue that he stole the show at WrestleMania 20. That match with Christian and the whole Trish Stratus thing and all that, like that was good stuff. I got into wrestling in 2005, and one of the things I got for Christmas when I got into wrestling was the DVD of WrestleMania 20. And on that was first of all, on that was the Mania of WrestleMania from WrestleMania 19, that little. If you haven't seen that, go watch it. It's really, really good. But I remember watching WrestleMania 20, and there was a lot on that card to like. But for me, I thought that the Chris Jericho, Christian, that whole program really stole the show and was really something that was it was cool to watch. And me as a 10, 11, 12-year-old at that time, and even now, I think that those are really cool things to go back and watch. And then you move into kind of 2004, 2005. He's kind of in the again, just in the mid card, but then he's doing cool shit all the while. Like there was a match at Taboo Tuesday 2004 with him and Shelton Benjamin that was really, really good. And let me make sure that's right. And speaking of Taboo Tuesday 2004, if you have not listened to the Grillin' JR episode covering Taboo Tuesday 2004, you should go watch it. Yes, it was. You should go listen to that, because at the beginning of that, Jim Ross goes off, and he does what only Jim Ross can do, and that is, be Red Ass JR. So, shouts out to you, Jim. But yeah, no. So he, like 2004, he had a really good match with Shelton Benjamin. I remember that. And at Taboo Tuesday, and then you kind of move into the later part of 2004, early 2005. He's kind of doing different things and kind of just floundering in the mid card. I think he's gone on a record of saying that as well. Then you go into WrestleMania 21, where he has the Money in the Bank, which that was one of the coolest things at that time. Like one of the new hot thing that was happening at that time, and he was a big part of that. And he was on TV. He was billed as sort of the creator of that, and I think that that behind the scenes, he was also a big part of that match happening. So Chris Jericho has been. You look at that first run in WWE from '99 to 2005, like. He was doing cool stuff the entire time, like whether it was opening the cards with Benoit and Kurt Angle and doing all that, or winning the Undisputed title or having the barn burner with Shawn Michaels, or having the barn burner with Christian, and then doing the Money in the Bank stuff like that first run. And then like I said, I got into wrestling when in 2005 I was 8 or 9 years old, and I stumbled across the TV, and one of the first things I remember seeing was the very first pick of the draft lottery. Come on down, and Chris Jericho and Cena comes out, and they do the whole thing, and I remember being very bought in when it was the John Cena Chris Jericho match at Vengeance 05. I was very bought in at that time. And so like the entire time he was doing cool stuff. And then that program that he did with John Cena in the summer of 05, right before he left, that was really cool. And then he takes the 2 years off from wrestling, comes back, does the cool, code Chris Jericho cryptic thing where he's, break the code. And then he comes back in and he's doing the, and it was so cool to see him in that sparkly vest that he came out with it. In 2007, that was pretty dope. And then you move into 2008, and he's doing he changes his character. He's got the short hair. He's wearing the suits. He's talking very low and very controlled, and just very like, this is what it is. I'm gonna murder you and your family, and that's it. And so all that stuff. It just kind of. Like, he's just gone through so many variations. So you look at, his first run was kind of all the Y2J character, the Rockstar character, and then you move into the suit era where he's wearing the suits, and then after that you kind of go into the scarves and all of that, and the vest with the lights and all that stuff, and Chris Jericho is just he's always evolving what he's doing. And it's really cool to see that, because, a lot of times, like with guys like Cena, or guys like, no offense to those guys, there's a reason they do it, and I get it, and it's because it works and it draws a lot of money. But then they never really change. They're kind of the same version of themselves all the time. And it's, and by the way, you need people like that. You need people like that in wrestling to make it work. But at the same point in time, you also need people like Chris Jericho. Because Chris Jericho is going to constantly evolve his character, constantly evolve what he's doing, constantly evolve how he's presenting himself on television, where he's presenting himself, what program he's presenting himself on. And then, so kind of getting back to the timeline of his career, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2009, 2010, he has the Jericho thing. They're a tag team. And while that didn't do it for me at that time, that was kind of a tune out for me. But I do know that was a very big, they did it for a long time, so it had to work in some way. And then, even the stuff like all the stuff he did with Fandango and sort of the later years of his WWE run, and then he goes to Japan and does all that, or it takes more time off, then goes back to WWE, right? And I got a little bit ahead of myself talking about Japan, but he takes some time off, goes back to WWE, does all that stuff with Kevin Owens. They have the "You Just Made the List," which was so entertaining. I use that in my everyday life quite a bit, and nobody understands it. Nobody has any fucking clue what I'm talking about when I say "You just made the list," but I get it, and that's all that matters. Like that's also the one thing that I really love about pro wrestling is that it's very like inside, and there is kind of the thing of like as long as you get it, and as long as like 5 people get it. It works, and I think Kevin Nash and guys like Kevin Nash and Scott Hall and those guys, the whole clique, they've talked about that a lot. Like you just made the list is one of those things that I say, and people are like, what? But it makes me laugh. So who gives a shit? But yeah. So he does all that stuff, and then leaves WWE again and goes to Japan, and then has those really crazy matches with Kenny Omega and. And he, if you listen to him talk about it, he got very seriously hurt in that, taking that one-winged angel on the chair. He's like, I cannot do that anymore. Like that is not happening. And just him being able to talk about that and being like, yeah, I can't do what I used to be able to do in terms of physically, like in terms of like physicality wise. I'm not able to take the punishment my body used to be able to, but Chris Jericho, he realizes he can still contribute. He can still add to the show. He can still add value to what everybody's doing. So, and then he goes to Japan. Boy, it is late, and my brain is not working right now, huh? But then after Japan, he goes and he joins AEW. And he's one of the founding members of AEW and becomes the first AEW champion and all that stuff. And then, he the other genius thing about Chris Jericho is he continues to find ways to stay relevant, right? Like in WWE it was the list and the Festival of Friendship and all that stuff that was so much fun. And then he moved to AEW and it's a little bit of the bubbly and all that stuff in the inner circle. And he was kind of the ringleader of that whole faction. And his character in AEW is different than the one he did in Japan, and that was different than the one he did in WWE, and that was different than the one he did before in WWE, and it just he's constantly evolving, and the fact that he has he's 51 years old, and when he was 46, I think 2017, he had one of his biggest hits of all time with his band Fozzy. Like, who does that? This guy is a treasure, and now to see him still rocking and rolling in AEW and still doing what he does in AEW is really, really fucking cool. And now to see him come out in 2022 at 51 years old and be in the best shape we've seen him in a long time. Big props to Chris Jericho. I am a big Chris Jericho fan, and just the fact that he's been able to, and by the way, he was also on Dancing with the Stars. He's also done like a lot of this other stuff that just people forget about. But Chris Jericho has literally done it all. He has done it all. You know, hit songs, pro wrestling, starting companies, writing books. I don't have it here. I don't have it in this stack here. But one of the first books I read about wrestling, because when I got into wrestling and you know, at first, you know, you get in and you're a mark and you just love the product on TV. You buy in, you think it's all, you know, it's all legit, it's all this, it's all that. Once I started realizing kind of what this whole thing was, and you know, there is this thing called kayfabe, and it is sort of performance or whatever. And then once I got into kind of like middle school, I would say middle school and early parts of high school, then I started to get really into the books, and like Stone Cold Truth is one that I read early on, and whoops, my dice fell. Whoops. Stone Cold Truth is one I read early on. Adam Copeland on the Edge is one that I read really early on. Making the Game, Triple H's book, is one that I read. But also in that collection is Lion's Tale, Around the World in Spandex. It's not on my desk here, but it definitely should be. So I might have to go on Amazon and get that one. But I used to have it. I don't know what happened to it, but I've moved a lot and all this stuff. So, but anyways, Chris Jericho is a treasure to the wrestling community. He's a treasure to wrestling fans. And I just think that he is the last of a dying breed. And that is the Renaissance man, rock star, Grey Goose drinking some bitch that just doesn't care. And that is really, really cool. So, like I said, it's just really cool to see him kind of doing what he does still at 51 years old. I think that's what's most impressive to me. The fact that he's 51, you know, he's out there doing what he does on a regular basis, and the fact that he has, you know, I remember when MJF and him were feuding, and you know, they had that stipulation where he couldn't use his entrance music. He walks out and that entire arena is singing the words to his song from his band for his entrance. That's pretty badass, if you ask me. And so Chris Jericho, I think he should go down as one of the GOATs of professional wrestling. He should go down as one of the greatest of all time. And if nothing else, just for his range as a performer and just for everything that he's brought to the business of professional wrestling. He's been involved in every major promotion in North American pro wrestling over the last 20 years. ECW, WCW, WWE, WWF, and now AEW. I would say those are probably the four that stick out as like the major promotions in North America. And Chris Jericho has been associated in some way, big or small, like in ECW, he wasn't there for very long, but he was a big part of that as Lionheart Chris Jericho, and then you go into WCW, and then he does his whole thing there, and which was very entertaining, where he was he was a conspiracy victim and all that stuff, and it's just really cool to see him evolve, and now to see him at 51 and now look back on everything that he's done. Man, it's really cool, and Chris Jericho deserves way more credit than I think he gets, and that is a damn shame.